Welcome to the studio, former Ukip leader Henry Bolton, who is a regular guest, and for the first time Jo Marney, Mr Bolton's girlfriend, although you are your own person as well, and we'll discuss that, so thank you very much for coming along. You're not just merely Mr Bolton's girlfriend. I have to ask you, let's start with you, Henry Bolton, because I have a closer relationship with you. I've met you on a number of occasions. Why are you doing this? Why continue the media round?
Well, I think that prior to the emergency or the extraordinary general meeting in the party, in Ukip, it wasn't really possible to talk about this without stirring the political pot and adding to the party's woes. But there's a lot of questions out there, and we at least would like to address those questions and then draw a line under it and
what are those questions, Mr.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the background and the context to messages that Jo put out.
Yes.
There's a lot of background in terms of, are we together or are we not together? Well, we clearly are together.
Yes. Were you ever not together?
No.
So you were together all the way through? Were you telling me fibs a few weeks ago then when I asked you?
I think, Nick, I was playing on words a little bit.
Well, you weren't playing on words. You said that you were apart.
Well, I think I said, we'd put personal issues in a box to be dealt with later.
Jo, how do you feel that the romance was switched on and off at will by Mr Bolton?
Well, it wasn't. So,
to the general public,
it was to the general public, but not to me.
Yeah.
So, I was fine with it.
You were.
Yeah. I was a Ukip fan at the time. So,
how did he characterise it to you? Did he say, "Look, Jo, I am a military man. I'm going to have to run a certain military operation here. We're going deep background, so the public impression will be X, but you and I know it is Y." I'm just wondering how he characterised it.
There was a discussion like that, similar to that. Obviously, there's a bit of friction about it, but I understood.
Tell me about the friction.
Well, it's quite difficult to, sit at home and watch your boyfriend on telly saying that he's not your boyfriend.
Why are you laughing? Mr Bolton's just roaring with laughter. I said at the time you were a cad. I said there's a young woman, and we'll talk about what you did because we have got a quiz you. There's a young woman in need and in distress, and you just, at an hour of need, you just dance off. And in fact, you didn't even dance off anyway.
Well, that's the point, Nick. It was very difficult for Jo.
Can you trust him?
Yeah, of course I can.
How? He tells the public one thing, he tells you another.
Well, maybe the public shouldn't trust him, but I certainly do.
Well, I think the public, as much as possible, have voted, and they don't see. So, what attracted you to him, Jo?
Well,
what's his qualities?
So many. He's cheeky, he's funny, he makes me laugh. I think he's a gentleman. I think he's bloody great.
Yeah. What about the way the party have treated him? The Ukip party, that is called.
Yeah, treated both of us, actually.
How have they treated you, Jo?
I think that I have been used as a political pawn.
In what way?
Well, I think there's certain people within Ukip who have their own political agendas at heart, rather than the party. And I think
you mean to advance their own careers?
Yes, to advance their own careers.
Right.
And I think they have tried to destroy my character in order to get to Henry, to oust Henry.
And who would that be?
Well, I can't really. I'm not going to name names, but
right.
There's a small group within Ukip.
Why? Is that because they saw Henry as a threat, or...?
I think it's because, as I say, they wanted to advance their own political careers. I think that they were anti-Henry from the start. They didn't vote for him to be leader, and I think they wanted rid of him.
Was it instant attraction when you met Henry?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
When did you first meet?
We met at a Ukip lunch in Folkestone just before Christmas.
Right, OK. Was it instant attraction for you?
Yeah,
and are you going to tell me the truth this time?
Yes, I am, Nick.
Okay,
no,
right.
we can be entirely open about things now.
Entirely candid.
No, absolutely. Jo's an attractive lady, but then we were talking about for about 5 minutes, and I thought, well, there's a sort of a sagacity here. There's a sort of, in some of the comments that she made about political things, and just generally struck me that there was more
what were the political comments you liked?
Well, we talked about the organisation of the party. We talked about some of the things going on in Kent.
Like what?
Well, we talked about the branches, and we talked about...
I see. Right.
Yeah. So... it was a very brief conversation. We were talking for maybe 5 minutes, if that.
Right, OK.
But
what was the state of your marriage then?
It was as it had been for some months. My wife and 2 children had moved to Vienna in July,
right.
By mutual agreement. There was no animosity over that. Right. It was a practical move because I was going for the leadership, and it was a way of ensuring that there was some income coming into the family through my wife.
I see. Yeah.
Because there was no other income, and at least that way we secured the future for the 2 girls, no matter what the outcome of the leadership contest.
Yes.
And we also knew that there would be issues over me getting paid if I did win the leadership.
Yeah.
So that was a practical thing. I went over there.
Was there a romantic side over when you met young Joe?
Yes.
Now, you're being truthful this time.
No, I am. I had gone over there. I mean, we were on reasonably friendly terms in a sense.
How would you
but I'd gone over
currently your terms with your ex-wife, your estranged wife?
Cold.
Right.
Yeah, and she's no, not at all. I mean, she's been deeply hurt and upset about this.
Yes.
So is her family. It's been very difficult.
Which is also supposed to be upset that you've not stayed in touch with your children. How accurate is that?
Well, that's not entirely true. We had a Skype call the other day, and indeed, the agreement that we've got, there's no direct communication between us at the moment.
Between you and your estranged wife?
Correct.
Right.
But
you do it through lawyers,
we've agreed. Well, I'm not going to go into the details of that.
Okay.
But what we've agreed is that I will put forward a sort of a plan as to how I want to stay in touch with the 2 girls.
Right. Okay. Right. And then she will obviously respond to what she sees as the merit of that plan.
Yes.
So, Joe, you made interesting political comments in your conversation with Henry,
right, yeah.
But you've made other comments that we have to touch on now, and I know you were asked about this on TV yesterday. I won't go through all of them, but how would you describe them?
I would describe them as, the language that I used was obviously very offensive, but, there's certain points that I think that I raised in some of the comments that are very relevant, and I think that we should be able to discuss things in private, and I think that it's a great shame in this country if we're not allowed to say offensive things in a private conversation.
What do you mean by that? What should you be able to discuss that you obviously has been highlighted now in a public arena? What should you be able to... Because a lot of this is pretty offensive stuff, Joe.
Yeah, well, should you or shouldn't you be able to say offensive things in a private conversation?
Well, you tell me, what do you think?
I think we should be.
Right. Define offensive.
Define offensive? Well, what is offensive? Different things could be offensive to different people.
But
I find some people's religious views extremely offensive.
Yes. But is it okay then to say that in private, to say black people are ugly?
Is it okay? Well, is it okay in private? It was a wrong thing of me to say, but I think people should be able to express their views privately. I wasn't going out my way to offend anyone. I wasn't, abusive to anyone personally. It was a private conversation.
You described Meghan wet as a scrubber. How would you characterise that comment? Is that not offensive?
Yeah, well, there's things that I said in that conversation that I didn't mean.
Yes.
That it was a shock contest, and
it was a
shock contest.
What does that mean?
Well, I was talking to a Tory, and we were winding each other up, maybe too many pints, and I said some rather silly things.
Yes, okay. So, and I'll bring Henry in just a second. And, of course, this is the conversation people have about free speech and about people having comments and the right to say things that offend other people, and that is the benefit of free speech that you say. But isn't there a line that you crossed?
Yes, there is, which is why I apologised.
Yes.
I wouldn't have apologised if I thought I hadn't crossed the line.
Yes.
I think there is a wider discussion.
What point did you cross the line? Where did you go too far?
I said some things about skin colours, and I'm not a racist in that sense.
So what do you mean in that sense?
Well, no, I'm not a racist in any sense. Okay,
ugly, not my thing. They, black people, don't turn me on. Wet as a scrubber.
Right.
Her seed will taint our royal family. You don't think that indicates a degree of racism, Joe?
Yes, which is why I apologise for some of those comments.
Right.
But I think there is a wider discussion about the royal family, and some people would say it's a traditionalist thing.
Right.
I made the comparison of how about if there was a white European emperor of Japan? How would the Japanese react to that?
So you still don't think she should be marrying into the royal family?
I think you should be able to marry whoever you like,
right,
but I think that people should be able to discuss these things, and lots of people were at the time.
Yeah. So it's okay to say these things in private then, is it?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I don't stand by some of the things that I said, but I think you should be able to say them, yes.
Do you agree, Henry?
I think it's an interesting point, isn't it? Where do you draw the line? If are you being offensive to somebody if you have no wish or intention for that somebody to hear or ever become aware of your comments? And I'm not sure that in that case, you are being offensive to that person. Now, you can say something to an individual that individual about a third party that the individual you're speaking to finds offensive. But again, that wasn't the case here. So I think Joe, I think, has gone through a very steep learning curve as to the risks and dangers of saying things. And I do believe, I've been on social media for about 2-3 years. I'm a bit of a dinosaur with this. And one of the remarkable things, in my experience of going through the last couple of months, has been to learn how people under the age of about 27 have been exchanging messages on Facebook and other forms of social media, which are horrific. And they would never, I believe, say such things in public or face-to-face.
So as long as it's in the privacy of your own bedroom, effectively, you can be racist.
Well, I don't. No, I'm not. I don't. The thing is, are you racist if you can say something and not actually? It's not your core belief, and it's not wise. It is silly. It is stupid to say that. And we've had that conversation. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and I would agree there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say, and there might be a bit of smoke and mirrors occasionally, Nick. But
we know about that. You've deceived the court on a number of occasions.
I say what I mean, and I personally have the.
You wouldn't do it again, would you, Joe?
No, absolutely not. No.
So how are you going to have your private conversations then? How are you going to have your private tweet moment?
Well, I don't think there's any reason to say things that you don't mean. Just as a shock contest, as I call it.
You don't think that, in a way, comments such as yours contribute to the fact that Meghan and Harry were sent a racist letter with fake anthrax? Have you seen that?
Well, I certainly hope not.
But do you not foster that sort of feeling about Meghan by saying that she's wet as a scrubber and ugly and not my thing, and her seed will taint the royal
family? Not at all. I didn't make these comments public.
Can I say on that? I was a police officer at one point, and there's insulting words and behaviour, and if you make these things public, then you can commit the offence. If you don't make them public, you don't commit the offence. And in a little bit on that background, stupid comments that actually weren't part of Joe's core sort of beliefs, if you like, but I would say a lot of the culpability there it rests in the hands of the people who made those private messages public.
Okay.
And who facilitated and encouraged that to happen. And this is a question I think that the party needs to address and seriously, but they have parked that. And indeed, it was those comments were material to the decision to hold a vote of no confidence against me.
Yes.
The party has the proof that there was encouragement and facilitation there, but nonetheless decided not to investigate that and still haven't done, albeit that they put forward that whole point as a basis for the vote of no confidence. And I think there's a sort of political issue there for UKIP to address.
You won't be surprised with the profile that you both enjoy. A lot of people would like to have words with you. If you want to put on your headphones, I trust you have some too, Joe. Excellent, thank you. And Steve is in Shaftesbury. Steve, you're through to Henry Bolton and Joe Marney. Go ahead with your question, Steve. Good morning.
Hello, Steve.
Hello there. Henry, how could you ever have expected to lead a party where the main management committee, the main board of volunteers in that party, say they have no confidence in you?
Around 30% of the membership of the party voted me into the leadership. The National Executive Committee, which is what I believe you're referring to, not one of them voted for me in that leadership contest. So they didn't reflect the views of the party. Indeed, there was a comment in the discussion leading up to the vote of no confidence in which one of those NEC members said, well, hang on, you're not an expert in economic theory. My point is that I wasn't when I was elected, so you cannot now go back and redress that. So, the NEC has had a history of poor decision-making, based on its own political bias and agenda.
Right this time, though, didn't they?
No, I don't believe they did.
Well, 71% of the membership didn't vote for you when you got elected. They voted for other candidates, and it was first past the post, which isn't particularly a policy that UKIP support.
Correct.
But actually, even at the meeting, which was 1,500 or so people, you only managed to get 37%. So again,
yes, so my proportion of the vote had increased, hadn't it?
Of the members.
My proportion of the vote had increased, indeed, and indeed at that meeting,
still lost.
It's still, I still lost, but it's the proportion of the look, UKIP also says quite clearly that if you, with regards to the referendum, that if you've made a democratic decision, then you need to stick by it. And in this particular case, as Joe had said earlier, there was a clear problem that from the word go, the NEC didn't support my leadership, did not support the agenda of change that I'd stood on during the leadership contest. And, there was always going to be a confrontation between the two of us. And yes, I lost that, and that's, so be it. But
Steve,
it was the agenda I stood on.
You're a member of UKIP, are you, Steve?
Yes, I am a member of UKIP, and I can say that there was a very clear problem at the grassroots. We had all sorts of people resigning, right down at local level, but also councillors, our big groups of councillors, some of them resigned en bloc, like in Thurrock. We had problems in Thanet where half of them went. Hartlepool. Now, these are all areas where UKIP has been working for years and years.
Yeah,
and the problem is, the leader sounds like he's condoning basically a racist.
No, not at all.
It's not my core beliefs. It's not her core beliefs.
Okay, let's get Mr. Bolton in.
I mean, we've been losing as a party 800 to 1,000 people a month for about a year. That goes way beyond my leadership. I stood on a very clear platform of change. That change agenda was in mid-flow when it was disrupted by the NEC vote. The fact is that now you've got branches closing as well. The party is falling apart. As long as the party doesn't deal with the factionalisation and the poor discipline within the party, then it is a lost cause. And if it lurches to the right, which it is doing, then again it's going to just end up on the periphery.
Steve, thank you for the call. Joe, let's bring you in. What do you think UKIP have lost by turning its back on Henry Bolton as its leader?
Well, I think they've rejected reform, certainly.
How long have you been in the party?
About a year and a half, I think. Mm-hmm. They have rejected reform. That's a great shame,
What would he have brought? What would Henry Bolton have brought as the leader of the party?
Well, he drafted a new constitution. So, the NEC has now rejected that, basically, and, I think they're a sinking ship, and it's a great shame.
All right, OK. Sue's in Shirley. Sue, you're through to Henry Bolton and Joe Marney. Go ahead, Sue. Good morning.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, good morning, Nick. I just want to say, why is Henry and his girlfriend talking about party politics? Why are they playing the victim? They're not the victims here, and they're not on the show to talk about the...
Oh, we've lost them. I think we've lost you. Try one last time. Let's go to Joe. Have you come back, Sue? They're not on the party... sorry, they're not on the phone to talk about... No, the school's gone. Do you think you're playing the victim?
I don't think so.
Why are you doing this? Why are you coming around with going to the TV studios?
As I said before, I have been used as a political pawn in all this. If I wasn't connected to Henry, would anyone care what I had said about Meghan Markle, about any of these things? I don't think they would.
Are you a victim, though?
In a way, yes, I think I am.
In what way?
Well, in a political sense, these
but what
people
about personally? How tough was it for you?
These people have tried to destroy my character purely to get Henry out of his position of power.
How tough was it for you personally, though?
Extremely tough.
Was it?
There was about a month where I was extremely, extremely down. My family suffered immensely throughout this. So, in a way, I have been a victim.
Yep. Thank you. Ed in Corby, you're through to Henry and Joe. Go ahead, Ed.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ed.
Good morning.
I'd like to say to you, Henry, you led the public to believe that you'd finished with Joe Marney. You made that quite clear in television statements and everything. And I've just heard your smug little laugh, right? Your smug little laugh that, no, we never did finish.
What is your question?
You wonder why people outed you, yeah?
Henry Bolton.
I'll just throw a question back, if I may. Do you think it is right or appropriate for anybody to turn around and say to somebody in these circumstances, you must end your relationship? Imagine if Joe was my daughter, my wife, my fiancée, my sister, and would anybody in those circumstances even dream of saying, you need to end this relationship, you must not be seen with this person, you must not have photographs taken with this person, you must not go out with them at all. Now, that was the situation I was placed in. Now,
so you lied?
So I was put in a very, very difficult position. And I've said on national television that I would be in touch with Joe, that we would continue to meet. I've said that I would never, ever, for any reason, betray my friends or my loved ones, and I won't.
Quick response from you, Ed.
Well, you didn't get the NEC vote, and you lied thinking you'd get the majority vote. Then you lied saying you wouldn't see her again. You wouldn't be seeing her again. You lied hoping you'd get that vote. And by saying you wouldn't betray anybody, I think you betrayed your wife, haven't you, and kids?
Mr. Bolton?
Look, these things happen, and perhaps, I don't know how many marriage breakups there are every year. I'm human. I'm not going to go into the details of the ins and outs of my marriage over a lengthy period of time. I'm sorry. So you're just going to have to, if that's your opinion, I'm afraid I'm not going to sort of go into the detail of that to counter it.
Briefly, you referred to Jo as possibly being, if she were your wife or your fiancée. Is that likely to happen?
I think you'll have to ask him that.
Okay, there we go. Is it likely to happen? Would you like to marry her?
I think that that's the direction of travel, probably.
The direction of travel. Would you like to marry... I feel like Silly Black. Would you like to marry...
Well, we'll see. We'll see how he asks me.
Can you just pretend he's out there? Indeed. Just pretend he's out of the room. All I would say to you...
Yes.
He's been married 3 times before. Now, people can see the error of their ways, but, he's not a one-time offender. I mean, he's a thrice-time offender. They can't all have been practice marriages, can they? Or warm-ups. I mean, isn't that a concern for you?
No.
We've all had a practice marriage. Well, many of us have had practice marriages.
But not really. I mean, we know how we feel, I think.
Right.
And... people haven't seen really much of us because we've had to spend a month and a half in complete privacy.
Yes.
So, we've spent a lot of time together.
You didn't do very well when you were caught on the tube, Mr. Bolton, were you?
No.
Was that you?
Was that me on the tube?
I mean, you were supposed to... No. Was that your idea to catch the tube? You were meant to be an army logistical wizard, weren't you?
Yeah,
you got the bloody tube.
That was a bit of a slip-up, I have to say, Nick. Yeah.
Dear. All right. Jay's in Bracknell. Jay, you're on the radio.
Hello, Jay.
Good morning. You're through to Henry and Joe. Go ahead, Jay.
Hi, I've got a question for Joe, really. Joe, as a black person myself, I just want to understand what exactly you mean when you say that having a black person within the royal family would actually taint the royal family. Considering you've previously said this is Britain and not Africa, I'd just like to hear your views on that.
Joe.
Well, as I said earlier, I don't have those views. I think that skin colour is irrelevant, but as I said, I am a traditionalist, and how would you feel about having a white emperor of Japan? Do you think
what does a traditionalist mean? What do you mean by that? Do you mean the royal family should only be white?
Yeah.
No, I don't think the royal family has to be white. I was referring...
I don't know whether you heard that, Joe Marney. He said, Jay said, you're beginning to sound like a white supremacist.
Right, I'm not a white supremacist. I didn't say that I dislike black people or that black people are not equal to white people.
Joe, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm specifically asking you, what do you mean by having somebody of colour would taint the royal family?
Yeah, well, I apologise for that statement, and I don't stand by that. So, I don't really have much else to say about it other than... I'm very sorry, and I didn't mean to cause you anyone else.
And just to explain, the idea of a traditionalist.
Yeah.
Do you think then, therefore, the British royal family must always be white?
No, I don't think they should always be white. But she is an American. And there was a lot of discussion. So your problem is with her nationality? Well, partly, yes.
Right. Okay. Although, of course, you don't go that far back when they were Germans.
No, well, but they weren't Americans,
So your problem is with America?
It's not a problem, but, it's not traditional.
So we can have Germans, we can't have US or Japanese, is this what I'm hearing?
I'm not saying you can't have anything,
right, okay.
It was just a discussion.
God knows that was the Eurovision Song Contest in your house when that comes around. Thank you, Jay. Sharon's in Tunbridge Wells. Sharon, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Hi, Nick. So my question is to both Joe and Henry. Considering that your comments were made in private, do you not think that the two of you should remain a private couple and stop doing this media round and almost making your comments jovial? It's absolutely disgusting, and I find it laughable that you're able to say that your comments were not racist.
Well, let's see how Henry Bolton first, and then a word from Joe.
You
could just retreat to private. Unless, are you trying to become leader of UKIP again?
No, I'm not. No. Wouldn't it be nice? I think both of us would really wish that this had been able to remain private. However, first of all, there were people within UKIP who made sure that this did not remain private, and once it had entered the public domain, then the media didn't leave it alone, and so we have been hounded by media. Joe's family have had paparazzi parked outside the house for weeks. Yep. Not one or two, we're talking dozens. We've been followed. Joe's been followed. Her mother's been followed. I've been followed. And so it would have been wonderful to keep this private. What we're trying to do now is actually, people have got their opinions about it. Let's express it. Let's put it all on the table. Let's, get it done and dusted, and then indeed I want to draw a line under this.
All right, okay, quick word from you, Joe, on that central point. Should you be doing all this in private, not appearing?
Well, I've been forced to be in the public eye, throughout all of this, and I think I should have the right to have my say and to try and clear my character and clear my name a little bit.
Well, some of it's been quite tough to listen to as regards some of your views and some of your expressions, some of your comments. So for the last couple of questions, actually, I'm going to ask the questions, and we're going to lighten the mood. Yes. It's time to play UKIP, Mr. and Mrs. And I'm going to, Henry Bolton, ask you questions about Joe Marney. Let's just see how well you know young Joe. Which X Factor winner's music video did Joe appear in, and name that song?
Oh, God. No idea.
No idea? Fantastic.
Did, but
that would be Sam Callahan's song Burns Like Fire.
Oh, that's right, yes.
But never mind, that's right now. You got it wrong. Joe attended which university and got a degree at what level in what subject?
At Canterbury in multimedia and a first-class honours.
Correct, we'll take that one.
Yeah.
Joe recently tweeted a list of some of her favourite black music artists. Can you name two that she featured?
No, I can't.
So you get 1 out of 3. You could have gone for James Brown, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry and various others. 1 out of 3.
I was aware that she did, by the way.
Yes,
but
yes.
Didn't pay much attention.
He's lying again. He didn't know, did he?
You didn't have a clue, did you?
No, I didn't have to know about the names, no.
Right. Questions to
Muddy
you
Waters
now.
are good.
Questions to you now.
Okay.
Which regiment did your boyfriend join when he started with the Territorial Army?
I don't have a clue, to be honest.
Hopefully it's the Wessex.
Okay.
In what year was he promoted to being captain in the Territorial Army?
Again?
1994. I would imagine the year after you were born.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he was promoted to captain when you were 2.
Oh, dear.
Is he older than your dad?
No, he's not, no.
Not by much?
Not by much,
no.
no.
How does that feel?
Yeah, it was a bit... I was treading around that one quite carefully when I first met him.
So far, you scored 1 out of 3. Here's the final question to Joe Marney.
Right, OK.
Your boyfriend was awarded an OBE. For what services?
You know what? I lose. I hold my hands up. I don't know.
For services to international security and stabilisation following his work in Helmand province.
Right. Okay.
Well, it's been interesting. Thank you for coming along. My thanks to you, Henry Bolton. Good luck with you. My thanks to you, Joe Marney. Good to meet you. And good luck with the direction of travel as regards your romance, whatever that may mean, Mr. Bolton. Only you two know.
As a black person myself, I just want to understand what exactly you mean when you say that having a black person within the royal family would actually taint the royal family. Considering you've previously said this is Britain and not Africa, I'd just like to hear your views on that.
Joe.
Well, as I said earlier, I don't have those views. I think that skin colour is irrelevant, but as I said, I am a traditionalist, and how would you feel about having a white emperor of Japan? Do you think
what does a traditionalist mean? What do you mean by that? Do you mean the royal family should only be white?
Yeah.
No, I don't think the royal family has to be white. I was referring.
I don't know whether you heard that, Joe Marney. He said, Jay said, you're beginning to sound like a white supremacist.
Right, I'm not a white supremacist. I didn't say that I dislike black people or that black people are not equal to white people.
Joe, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm specifically asking you, what do you mean by having somebody of colour would taint the royal family?
Yeah, well, I apologise for that statement, and I don't stand by that. So, I don't really have much else to say about it other than I'm very sorry, and I didn't mean to cause you anyone else.
And just to explore the idea of a traditionalist.
Yeah.
Do you think then, therefore, the British royal family must always be white?
No, I don't think they should always be white. But she is an American. And there was a lot of discussion.
So your problem is with her nationality?
Well, partly, yes.
Right. Okay. Although, of course, you don't go that far back when they were Germans.
No, well, but they weren't Americans,
So your problem is with America?
It's not a problem, but, it's not traditional.
So we can have Germans, we can't have US or Japanese, is this what I'm hearing?
I'm not saying you can't have anything,
right,
it was just a discussion.
God knows what happened with the Eurovision Song Contest in your house when that comes around. Thank you.